Hello everyone, this is Leo here, and I want to talk about the dystopic future that I live in. A weird future in which a, an arcade cabinet is smaller than a home console, right? Like, put a towering PS4 next to this shoebox thing, and you'll see what I'm talking about, right? Now, I want to talk about the Evercade. What? Evercade Alpha. Alpha. Why Alpha? It's no sense to me. Um, and I want to talk about this, and I'll rag on this. But if you're an Evercade fan, before you complain to me that I'm ragging on your Evercade, if you want to complain that I'm ragging on it, watch the entire video because I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna say a few things, a few nice things about this Blaze company, right? But this right here is why I left like the Evercade ecosystem, and it's right here the reason why I'm glad I did. Okay, because this is just incredibly stupid, right? So, in case you don't know what an Evercade is a tiny, cheap Chinese box. It comes in two flavors. One is a cheap Chinese handheld, the other one is a cheap Chinese made. It's not developed in China, it's developed in the UK. Um, and a cheap Android box, little, is it Android? Maybe it's not Android, but a cheap little ARM-based emulation console that they play SD cards that are cosplaying as cartridges, old school cartridges, right? I mean it literally. It's SD cards. You can wire an Evercade cartridge into an SD card reader, and it's gonna read it, and it's gonna play the cartridge. Okay, it's gonna read it. You can then dump the fucking thing just with a normal SD card reader. Um, so fine, okay. So you have that. Is that bad? I don't think it's that bad. But some of the decisions that this company makes are that bad. For example, they released the first freaking Evercade, right? They have the 16 by 9 240p screen. Okay, every single game they had on that system at that point was 4 by 3. Maybe some more vertical aspect ratio. I don't remember exactly, but nothing was widescreen back then. Later, a few games I think came out that were somewhat widescreen. But why don't you have a 4 by 3 screen in a console where, you know, basically forever 99% of the games here at least are going to be 4 by 3. It's a console for playing games that were back in the day where screens were 4 by 3. So have it, right? Have it 4 by 3. It's just stupid. Now, that screen also, it's a in the beginning was a crappy TN screen, and it was 240p. Now, you might think that 240p means that you're pixel perfect scaling old consoles, but that's not how it works. Because almost no consoles back in the day output a true 240p signal. Because 240p doesn't even exist to begin with. It's not a standard. Televisions were not made for 240p. It's 480i. It's a different thing. But there were ways to make it 240p, right? Which generates the scan lines, blah blah blah. That you know, it is what it is. But these consoles were like 220p, 224p, something like that. And so you'll have black bars on top on bottom to make it be pixel perfect. And horizontally, almost all these consoles were stretched. So actually, in the end, what you would get would be shimmering, a lot of shimmering on the horizontal and or on the vertical plane, because you have this slightly off uh, pixel rate, which is one of the worst situations to be in. It's just poorly made. 240p or 720p. I prefer having at least a 720p screen. I was using the other day my Lenovo Legion Go that it's 600p vertical aspect ratio, and I had scan lines on, and the vertical aspect ratio was not pixel perfect. I mean, the scaling was not pixel perfect on the vertical axis, and those scan lines look all sort of fucked up playing with that specific filter, right? Garbage. Then I changed it to a perfect vertical ratio, having borders and stuff, but that's fine with this screen that's huge. Uh, and then those scan lines were looking decent. They were okay. They were not as good as the stuff that I was using on Mister, not even by far. I need to install a different emulator. SNES 9X standalone is not recommended by me. So you see, I mean, someone who's really interested in high quality emulation will have gripes with this company. And back in the day when I left them, one of the major features that I was asking for, I was in the Discord talking to the people who made this console, the creators, and saying you need to have button mapping on this thing. It can't be, right? Like actual button mapping for different systems or for different games. And they said, no, it's not what something we want to do. And I was like, well, okay, whatever. I'm fucking out of here. Because if I can't even fucking remap the buttons to play the games, like this is just garbage. Because some games work different than others. You can't have just a standard button mapping for all systems for all games. It doesn't work. So back then I quit buying new stuff from the Evercade, never sold it, but I also never played it again. It just sits around taking space, hidden behind other stuff that's also just taking space, like an Xbox One? Yes, One S, Xbox One S. Damn Microsoft making it complicated. And so, yeah, then later on they kind of fixed it, right? Later on they kind of fix it. Then they come out with a new, more premium handheld, and they don't fix the screen. It's like, dude, like you need to have a decent screen. These Chinese companies make a decent screen. And here comes the thing. Why don't they fix the screen? It's because they are stupid? No, it's not. It's because they want to hit a certain price point because the audience is garbage. People don't want to pay $200 for a handheld and then have it be decent. 250, $300 for a handheld and then have it be decent. No, it has to be cheap. Even if it's crap, it has to be cheap. Right? It has to look a certain way. It doesn't need to necessarily be good, but it needs to be reminiscent of certain things. Why do they take Game Boy cartridge connectors, or no, the console cartridge connector? Why do they take Game Boy cartridge connectors and make a custom shell for SD cards to have it in there? Most of those pins are not even being populated. It's a waste of material, it's a waste of space, and it's a waste of money. I don't think they should just make straight up SD cards, even though they could, right? But I don't think they should necessarily make straight up SD. Although that would be cool. Why don't they just make SD cards? Because at that point, if they just made straight up SD cards, I could buy those games. I just dump them on whatever SD card reader that I have, and then I play it on whatever hardware that I want. You're still buying the games. Who cares if you're using their specific shitty emulation console or if you're using your Mister to play the game? Who fucking cares? You're paying for the game that you could be pirating if you don't want to. But that's the thing. Nobody's gonna buy an SD card to play those games because people like being lied to. They like being fooled. They like to pretend that they don't like the idea of just dumping a bunch of ROMs. Well, it's just what you're doing anyway. So why don't you have it cheaper and better? It saves a lot. Dude, if you guys use handhelds, you're likely you were pretty happy about the change between the the Game Boy Advance to the Nintendo DS, weren't you? I was happy because I could take now 8 games with me in a very reasonable sized case, right? You can get a lot of games in and carry them around. Like carrying a slightly larger collection of Game Boy Advance games kind of sucks. And why does it, for the Evercade, I have that purse that they give you with the bundle that they had back then, and you fit like one cartridge in the system and max with the thing bulging 4 other cartridges. At least they are multi-game cartridges. But if those were SD card sized or even a little bit bigger, but SD card would make it way cheaper and easier, you know, and more flexible to the customer, and then you would be taking all of them. I don't know, like you could take easily 20 in that bag without a problem. But no, that's not what we want. So that's why I distanced myself from Evercade, because the target audience that they're selling to are not people who just are looking to get the best product they can for their money, the more the most flexibility, the best quality. No, it's just this nostalgia thing of looking at something that's pretending to be something else, just because you feel, you know, the need to recreate a past that's not coming back, and there's not even a reason to, because I'm sorry, really, like, is putting the cartridge really the the good part of having a gaming experience? I know it feels different, but it feels different and it is different when that cartridge is a real cartridge that doesn't get dumped, that doesn't have loading screens, that you turn on the console that's plugged to that television and you just have your game running immediately, right? And you know that thing lasts 30 years because you have that same console for 30 years now, and it's still running, and you never even, like, well, I don't know, maybe a lot of them, I don't know whether the Super Nintendos are blowing capacitors or not. I think some Mega Drives are. I don't know. I had a Mega Drive. It was mistreated and never repaired, and after I unclogged the reset button, it was working like a champ, you know, and nothing was done on the thing except for abuse. It was abused and it was still working. It's been a it's been a while. It's many years since I sold that, but I bet it would still be working today. I Whatever. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the capacitors blew out at this point. Um, so these are the things, right? Again, really, just have one where you put an SD card in. Is it that much different? I don't think so. So let's get to the Evercade Alpha now that I prefaced this entire, you know, Evercade thing. This takes that to the next level. Why? Well, because this is an arcade machine. And if I remember correctly, the specs for this is an 8-inch 4x3 screen. 8 inches. My Lenovo Legion Go is a handheld, and its screen is 8.8 inches, but it's in 16 by 10, not 16 by 9, 16 by 10. It's pretty decent for old school content. And so if I leave this on the table and I play games with someone else, it's gonna be about the same 8 inches of size as this screen. And let me tell you, I never really thought about doing that because that's kind of crap. That's kind of garbage. I would just plug my Lenovo Legion Go to a monitor or a television to play with other people, unless I didn't have anything else and I had to do it like this, and then I would, and fine, okay, but it's a handheld. It's a handheld. It's much more expensive than this thing, but it's also way more portable. And again, if you're not going to have it if you're not taking it everywhere, don't you have this in your home where you have a television, where you have consoles, where you have games? You know what I'm getting at? This thing was just made to look cool and for people to waste their money on it. Why would you play games on this thing? It's a tiny little arcade machine with a tiny little screen that's right above the buttons. You're looking down, squinting at this stupid little screen from above. The sound comes on the side of this thing, right? Like, what is the point of buying this? Who's gonna, like, are arcade machine enthusiasts really gonna buy this? Are you guys gonna buy this because this looks like an arcade machine? It definitely doesn't play like an arcade machine. I mean, I use arcade sticks. I used to use. Haven't been using them lately, but I have a whole collection of arcade sticks, and I have arcade sticks that I used to use for playing arcade games, right? It needs a platform for the palm of your hand, right? Otherwise, it gets really uncomfortable, especially with sharp edges. Look at how sharp these edges are on these tiny little arcade machines that they're trying to sell, right? And it's going to be so uncomfortable, right? And it has, well, I don't know. I don't like this Western style arcade machine layout. I just don't like it. I mean, to each their own, I guess. I can't really argue because it is selling to a Western market. So, and we're talking about it's all about that nostalgia, right? So I guess this is what hits the mark for these people. This looks like an arcade machine. That other kind of stuff that to me it's just stupid. But I completely understand it. This is exactly, I know what I'm saying. This is exactly what I am criticizing. This arcade machine looks like a real arcade machine, right? But it's really tiny. It has a marquee. When you're standing on top of this playing this, the angle for the marquee is completely wrong because it is emulating the angle that a marquee has. On an arcade machine, that is a huge thing that towers over your head, so you need to point the marquee down for people to look. Why does a arcade machine even have a marquee in the first place? Because it's competing with a bunch of other arcade machines in an arcade and needs to call your attention for you to come over and put in the quarters. That's why they not wasted, but they invested the money into making a marquee. Why does an arcade machine that you have at your own home need to have a marquee? Just for the nostalgic experience of having something that looks, this is a toy, right? This is just a toy. This is just another of those freaking uh, arcade one-ups that people buy to line them up, and there is no reason to buy this stuff. I mean, there is reason. There's this nostalgia collection, whatever thing reason, and that is the reason why, again, I distanced myself from this community and from the products, but from both, from the community and from the products, because again, it's just this nonsense of collecting and buying and lining up stuff on shelves without worrying about the quality of your gameplay experience. It blows my mind that they don't take out the material that they are wasting on top of this machine and use it to make a platform for your hands and then have something at the same cost with more or less the same weight and size, but that is actually better to play video games on. But it's not clearly not the priority. Why would you have this small screen wasting all uh, this real estate around it? Make it a 10-inch screen, make it a 12, make it bigger and make it a 12-inch screen in there. And then you're starting to talk about a size where you can start thinking about having a couple people around it playing the games, even though with the controls right dead center in this machine, right? Controls are dead center. If someone is using the arcade machine, you're not gonna be using If someone is using the controls, you're not going to be playing with someone next to you looking at the screen. You need to plug two controllers into this and then use that way. But if you do that, what's the point of doing that? Why don't you just use the console if you're plugging two controllers into this? They didn't even think about having a setup where you can have like two people playing each other on the same arcade machine for Street Fighter. Like you have a Street Fighter dedicated Street Fighter arcade machine, and you don't have two controllers on your. You know what I'm talking about? To me, this is just ugly. Because to me, beauty comes the with function, with logic, like with design. Like design, not as in it just looks like something old that I've seen before, but design as in, well, this looks well made, this looks well planned, and well created. Again, having some kind of intelligent design where you have a tabletop, I'm all for that, where you have a tabletop console that has its dedicated screen, right? So that you have one unified thing, and then maybe having some kind of way of attaching that to an arcade controller. Mad Catz already made arcade controllers back in the day, like 8 years ago, maybe even more, but I think 8 years ago, let's say maybe 10, where you could screw together two arcade controllers to make one big like arcade-like panel, right? And have something like that where you can screw two controllers together and then have the screen be able to be put in there, kind of modular. And so if someone really needs the compact size, just have their own controller with that attachable controller screen thing. And then if they want to have two players, have the screen between the two attaching to it. It's not that hard to create something like that. But that's the thing. That's the problem that's I'm just here ranting about this because I feel that it's fine. You guys all can say whatever you want about all these products and buy them and whatever. And they have the right to say, at least put an idea. Have one person putting out a concept out there of making retro inspired products that, you know, that are made for purpose, that the form is not just imitating some old stuff. And well, in the end, what happens is we have that. I have that. I have amazing arcade sticks. I have incredible emulation with Mr. FPJ, and I use that. And, whenever someone shames me for not purchasing a game, you know, for not going out and supporting these kinds of things like Evercade, instead of that, just using Mr. FPGA, I say, well, but the Evercade doesn't give me the quality. I bought an Evercade. I wanted to support Evercade. I talked to the guys at Evercade. I made you know, um, my requests or uh, uh, my recommendations of what I think is efficient, and they basically showed me the middle finger. They said, "No, this is not for you. Like we want to do it like this, and this is the target audience." And well, I mean, that's what you get, right? And in the end, it's good for me because I don't have to waste my money with this garbage and whatever other garbage that's out there. And you know what? I can play Street Fighter. I can play Champion Edition. I can play Super Turbo. I can play normal Turbo, the hyper fighting one. I can play, um, yeah, normal turbos, hyper fighting, Street Fighter 3, Street Fighter um, Alpha, all of them, online, offline, amazing emulation, much more games, much better features, better screens, everything better. I can have that easily here in the setup that I have at home. So I'm not complaining about the fact that there is nothing for me out there, but I really am saying that the reason why we get this crap is because the attention, the focus of a large group of people is on these absolutely nonsensical aesthetic decisions that are made into this product, that are baked into these products. Again, there's no reason for there to be a marquee. And if you're going to say, oh, but a marquee is cool, what's the problem with having a marquee? Well, this is really cheap, right? This is really cheap and low quality. Could have been more quality with the same price if instead of investing in stuff that doesn't need to be there, they had just kept to the absolute necessary. But again, having the marquee and looking like a miniature arcade machine is the priority. Gameplay comes second. And that's something that I absolutely cannot get behind. And I think it's sad that we have a community of people who say they're gamers, who pretend that they are gamers. And what they support is actually stuff that doesn't look like gamer stuff, right? It's just collector stuff. It's just, I don't know what stuff. And again, I was interested in Evercade. I was pretty nice to Evercade. If you can't see my review of the first thing, the first console they made, but considering all the flaws that it has, I was pretty positive on it. And I will admit a few things because I think a lot of people out there, they think, well, the Evercade is absolutely stupid. There's no reason to buy one. I can just buy these games on the PlayStation or on Steam and play these games, and that's it. Or I can just emulate these games, buy a Raspberry Pi, and play the games, and that's it. And the truth is, most of the collections that I know, or the individual games that I know that you can buy on the PlayStation or um, on Steam that are on Evercade, the Steam versions are not better. They're actually worse. A lot of these Raspberry Pi systems and whatever, they're crap. And you have to kind of know what you're doing to buy any of these things. And to do emulation, as I said, I just installed SNES 9X on my Lenovo Legion Go, and I was giving a go, and it was not a good experience. I was messing around with settings, and I kind of realized that it was kind of crap. I need to install probably RetroArch and take a look. I'm not sure whether RetroArch is going to do that good of a job for me. And the truth is, Evercade, generally speaking, especially for the price, it's actually offering kind of decent emulation, even if the hardware is not very good. The screen on the original Evercade is just really not very good at all. It's just such a shame. It needed to have, again, you do a good work on one front and then you do a bad job on the other one, and like, does it really matter if you have decent, relatively low lag emulation that is not crappy, but the screen just doesn't look good at all? So yeah, you can plug it into the television, but it's not a good experience. That's why I think the VS is probably a decent thing, probably the best way to enjoy this Evercade ecosystem. Definitely anything better than this new arcade machines that are putting out their apps. I mean, it's sad. It's sad to see, again, because it's not even, if it was super expensive, I'd understand it better, right? Because, well, okay, you have too much money, but why make it cheap? Why make it cheap and crappy, right? So it doesn't seem like these people have way too much money and they don't know what to do with the money. That's not the vibe that I get. So with the money that you'd be spending on this, you could be getting something that actually improves your gaming experience and makes you, you know, be able to play these games better, enjoy them better. But I don't think people care. I don't see that. I don't see, maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me. I'm again, I'm here, you know, uh, putting myself out there, criticizing the community as I so often did, right? But I see people in the retro, not retro, sorry, in the PC gaming handheld uh, community being ruthless. Some of these consoles I mean, the engineering that goes behind any of them, Steam Deck, ROG Ally, Lenovo Legion Go, like there's a lot of thought and there's a lot of competence, and like these designs are not bad. Some of them have major significant flaws, but it's not easy. And the kind of stuff that they need to balance and still try to make it affordable. And for what these are, they are affordable. The Lenovo Legion Go for 700 euro that I paid for it, I think it was. Maybe I'm misremembering it. Like it has a lot of hardware in there for that price, right? You don't go somewhere else and buy a, even if you go to a China, usually if you go to a Chinese manufacturer like Ioneo or something like that, it's more expensive than the Lenovo, because Lenovo can make, it's also a Chinese developer and uh, manufacturer, but it's big, and it can invest, and it sells in amounts that lets them lower the price. You see, I'm not paying a premium for this device just because it's Lenovo. I bought the one that was the cheapest I could get my hands on, then had the features that I wanted. Now, this stuff, usually from arcade, whenever you go on Alibaba and you see a machine that's as good as that for half the price. So why are you paying for it, just to have it officially licensed to Capcom? Is that what you're doing? Right? But what is the point? Is it even better? It definitely plays less games. Those Chinese things comes with 10,000 games that are illegal, right? I mean, yeah, I totally don't get it. And again, I am not against finding legal solutions to do this stuff. I just think that the legal stuff should be decent, should be good. And the Evercade VS is probably decent, probably plays. I mean, whether you like the games or not, whatever. My experience with the emulation for Evercade is that for the hardware that they have, they actually work on the emulation and they actually get it working reasonably well, which is not an obvious thing. It's not that easy. You don't install any emulator on any computer and have a good experience with emulation. It's not just how it works. And you definitely do not buy official releases of these games on Steam or PlayStation. It's getting better, but a lot of the old stuff is absolute garbage. And even newer releases often miss the mark. And the Evercade, I definitely have seen actual examples of games that I owned on Steam and on Evercade where the Evercade version played better. So it's not completely without merits for sure. And if you really want to buy a system that plays SD cards, that are cosplaying as cartridges, it is definitely something you could go for. I just wish it was even better or actually good and not, yeah, it's better than the other crappy stuff that's out there, but still not nearly as good as playing on my Mr. FPGA, right? Not nearly as good. It's not even as good as playing on my Lenovo Legion Go, and not as good as playing while I don't have a Raspberry Pi anymore, but I can buy one for as cheap as an Evercade and then have it be. But I'd have to work for that. So I understand that side, but still, I can. I know how to work for it, And if I didn't, I should be using the time that I'm making this video right now, talking about this and learning how to install Laka or whatever Batocera on on a Raspberry Pi. I find it strange that some people are so proud and so okay with being just ignorant, lazy slobs. Like I can't be bothered learning about stuff, right? Like they have disdain for researching their own hobby and learning how to do stuff that's not hard. I'm not telling you to program an emulator, just freaking installing one, and people want to be geeks and nerds and whatever, and they can't be bothered with even that. Like I find that really strange. I don't get behind that attitude, And want to call me an asshole? Well, I know I am one, right? I'm just venting here, but it really is the stuff that I think maybe maybe people should reflect on and really think about what they support and what they don't. And just because something is legal, it doesn't mean that it's good, and it doesn't mean that you should support it. You know, like these people need to do. And again, I am not blaming Blaze here for the failure of this. I'm blaming the customer. I'm blaming the people who don't come up to them and say, no, stop the presses, dude. Don't freaking ship this because this is not looking good. Don't do this. 8 inch is way too small. You know, you need to do something better. You need to do something that is actually worth playing and not just sitting on a shelf. And that I don't see the people doing that. The people are very happy to buy this and put on the shelf, and they know that they could play their cartridges on this, right? So they have an excuse to having bought this to put on the shelf. But really, is it worth playing these games on an 8-inch screen instead of just playing them with the VS on whatever screen that you know, definitely it's not worth it. So those are my couple cents on this. I know nobody asked. Nobody, literally nobody asked, Leo, what do you think about the new Evercade Alpha? Nobody asked. I'm just, being a dickhead saying this shit. But it does kind of, it doesn't really bother me as much as it gets my brain working. I look at this stuff and I watch the videos, and it hurts my brain. And I still haven't given up on YouTube. I try to watch YouTube videos of retro gaming and stuff, and it's just fucking garbage. I get appalled every time. I just browse through. When you're browsing through television, cable TV, trying to find something decent, and you spend like 2 hours browsing and browsing, and everything is fucking garbage. That's the state that I'm at with YouTube. It's like it's just trying to have some background noise to cook or whatever, and I can't find something that's good enough, because the ideas that people spew, about gaming and stuff, to me, right? Maybe I'm the stupid one and I'm crazy, but to me, this it's like, how can it be talking about this in these terms? Like, don't you care about the core elements of the experience, right? It's like you go to a restaurant to eat some hamburger, and you make an entire review of your you're going to hamburger, and you talk about the decorations on the walls. It's just like a real hamburger restaurant, and the chairs, they feel just like McDonald's chairs, and the odor, it stinks of fat, of burnt fat, like a McDonald's. And you're like, oh, how was the hamburger? Oh yeah, I just ate some mac and cheese that they made on a microwave, from the supermarket. And it's like, what? Who goes to a burger joint to eat some, you know, mac and cheese heated in a microwave? Yeah, but it looks just like a McDonald's. It's like, why the fuck wouldn't you go to, like, what? Are you insane? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? I really feel like this when I'm watching these YouTube videos. It's like, I don't get what the fuck you were talking about. Why are you saying this? This doesn't make any fucking sense. If you just want to eat some mac with cheese, some macaroni with cheese, heat it up in a microwave, why don't you just do it at home? Why would you go to a McDonald's fake place to eat that? Well, because you like going to McDonald's fake places. And it's like, is that possibly a fucking hobby? Like, do you think that's reasonable? Do you think you're a normal human being if you do that kind of shit? That's fucked up, dude. Why the fuck are you doing this? So, why would you buy fake little arcade? Like, what? This is not decoration. Like, there is a reason why these machines looked like this. And if you have nostalgia for going to McDonald's, like, why would you go to a fake one? It's like, if you have nostalgia for arcades, try to find an arcade in your region. I don't know. Like, what are you doing? Like, sorry, you just what the fuck is going on with these people? I don't get it. I don't get it. So you probably shouldn't waste your time trying to explain it to me. Either you get what I said, or you can just write in the comment section that I'm an asshole. I don't care. I'm used to it. At this point, I don't even, it doesn't even get to me anymore. It never really did too much, but at this point, like, yeah, I'm way over that. So, uh, that's it. I mean, fuck the Evercade Alpha, I guess. But I actually don't blame Blaze because they are a company. They have to do what sells. And if they're gonna make a good arcade machine and it's not gonna sell anything, I mean, they're just gonna close or, that's not gonna help them. But again, it's the customer who needs to tell these companies what they should be delivering and what kind of level of quality should be on their products. And especially YouTube is just this cringe fest of all everybody desperate to have something to talk about, and because they don't have an idea in their head, instead of criticizing things, and as I'm doing, they just say, "Oh, that looks cool. It looks like a Street Fighter arcade machine. You can play your Evercade games on it." So I'm really excited about having a tiny little shoebox arcade machine. I People complain about arcade one-ups, the big ones, being too tiny, and look at this crap, 8 inches. Holy shit, man! I'm out of here. Goodbye.